There weren't that many trilogies on the Nintendo Entertainment System. You had Castlevania, Double Dragon, and of course Super Mario Bros., but none of those were able to reach the cinematic heights of Ninja Gaiden. Now is the time to turn away if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to complete the trilogy and spoil Ninja Gaiden III, the ancient ship of doom. This is 23 Endings, the early years. When we last checked in with Ryu, he had just found out that his long-dead father wasn't actually dead after all. He had rescued the girl, defeated the evil Jackio, and kept the world from ending. Wait, isn't that how I started the Ninja Gaiden 2 episode? As it turns out, the exact same previously on recap applies here, because Ninja Gaiden 3 is a prequel. Even though it's the final game in the NES trilogy, it takes place smack dab between the other two. That would normally be fine, but for some odd reason the game wants you to be worried about Irene Liu as she's chased to the edge of a cliff and falls to her death. Except we know that she doesn't really fall to her death because she's around to get abducted by Ashtar in Ninja Gaiden 2. I think I'm just gonna have to let this one go. So wouldn't you know it, Ryu is accused of murdering Irene and forced to clear his name. He decides to search the laboratory that Irene was investigating before her death and finds a mysterious man who tells Ryu to go to the Castle Rock Fortress. It's not much to go on, but at least it's a lead. As you might imagine, the trip to Castle Rock is a harrowing one. At first, Ryu has to put up with quicksand, then lava filling up the caves he's exploring, and finally a battle with this robot thing. What is this place? Yeah, that's the same question Ryu had, and thankfully there's an answer. Now, do you remember Foster? He was the CIA interrogator from the first game that ended up sending Ryu to South America. Well, he shows up as some sort of video projection and talks about the defense system he built around Castle Rock. Unfortunately, he doesn't know where Irene is, but sends an ominous warning to our ninja hero. Both men know they'll meet in person soon enough. After fighting past the forest and through whatever this is, Ryu stumbles upon a young ninja that kinda sorta looks like our hero. He's younger and filled with energy, excited to take on the real Ryu Hayabusa. It's after this fight that we learn that the doppelganger not only looks the same, but has acquired all of Ryu's strengths. Now we know who killed Irene and framed Ryu, so it's time to track down Foster and end this. Now, on the way to Castle Rock, Ryu ends up running into that mysterious man who gave him the lead in the first place. It turns out that his name is Clancy, and he used to work with Foster on something called the Biohazard Plan. Apparently Clancy quit when he realized that Foster was working on a super secret project to create a monster called a Bionoid. And if that wasn't bad enough, this might actually be Ryu's fault. When he defeated the Jackio in the first game, a dimensional link remained that allowed some sort of life energy substance thing to seep through the ruins of the fortress. Now Foster is experimenting with the alien substance and creating new life, which is apparently the story that Irene was investigating when she died. Armed with the answers he sought, Ryu infiltrates the Castle Rock Fortress and comes face to face with Foster. He also finds the Bionoid Ninja from earlier, which is about to lead to an epic showdown when all of a sudden an armed gunman charges into the room. Wait, that's no gunman! That's Irene, alive and armed to the teeth. But before Ryu has a chance to process the new information, the doppelganger magically transforms into a purple monster. He's injured with a hail of bullets and then finished off by Ryu. But don't celebrate too soon, because we're only halfway through this adventure. It turns out that Clancy had been using both Ryu and Irene to take out Foster's defenses and seize control of the interdimensional rift. He mostly laughs before jumping through the portal with Foster, forcing Ryu to follow him. But not you, Irene, because your tiny body will get ripped to shreds by traveling through subspace. You just need to stand back and not get abducted for the rest of the game. So Ryu jumps into the demon dimension, which is where he once again finds his doppelganger. The good news is that he no longer looks like Ryu. But the bad news is that he's been brought back to life by that mysterious energy floating around. They fight. Ryu wins, obviously, and once again comes face to face with Clancy. It turns out that the subspace trip has turned the guy blue, and now he's spouting all this nonsense about how he's going to create this interdimensional warship that will ultimately be the only arbiter of life. And to demonstrate this power, Clancy takes the ship for a spin and destroys a large mountain range with a single shot. Oh, he also opens up a trapdoor that is supposed to send Ryu falling to his death, just like in the first game. Of course, Ryu doesn't actually die. He simply falls to the lower platform outside the warship. He fights his way back into the ship only to find that Clancy has turned into one of those bionoid monsters. He explains that he's doing this to protect the humans from themselves because they're weak and prone to violence. Ryu's having none of this and decides that it's his duty to destroy Clancy and the warship. Here's what happens after the fight. Well, at least they're consistent. Look, I think this is an overall solid ending, but I can't help but notice that all three Ninja Gaiden games have essentially the same ending. Ryu beats the boss, watches some sort of tower crumble in the distance, share a message of optimism with Irene, and then watch the sunrise over the landscape. It's a great formula, but did we need to see it 3 times in a row? And it's not just the structure that seems lazy, but also all the conveniences. How does Ryu escape that floating warship? He mysteriously teleports. How does he get miles away from Castle Rock in order to see it crumble? Who knows? He just does. Tecmo isn't that interested in the details. They just want to leave you on a note of optimism. But that happy ending doesn't stick, because we already know that Ryu's most epic battle is yet to come. And that's why prequels rarely work. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of 23 Endings, the early years. So here's the question of the day. What is your favorite video game trilogy of all time? Doesn't have to be an old school franchise, so let me hear your picks in the comments below. So, would you believe this? There's only one more ending left to talk about. What could it be? Here's a hint. It's part of a series we've already covered. Give up? Don't worry, we'll be back on Monday with the series finale of 23 Endings. In the meantime, I recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.